Dave, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bienvenue à tous, bienvenue à toute la communauté française. Je suis accompagné aujourd'hui de notre hôte de marque qui est, sans vous le présenter, Monsieur Dave Castro. Et on a également Jean-Marie de l'Atelier Fit qui sera là pour poser une majorité des questions. On peut remercier Dave qu'on avait déjà vu en France à l'occasion du 17 points il y a maintenant 4 ans et qui aujourd'hui va répondre à nos questions pour dire un petit peu plus qui il est et également pour répondre aux questions du fameux Open et du nouveau format des Games. So, thank you very much, Dave. It's been exactly 4 years and 1 day since we were in Paris for 17.1. I still remember eating a good steak and mashed potato in the restaurant near the box.
Yes.
And, before you did the announcement at 2 a.m. Is that one of your best memories?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that trip out there. It was the first time I'd ever been to Paris, and it's such obviously a beautiful city, and everyone was very nice and accommodating. I toured and saw a lot of different boxes, and I really had a good time. But one of my highlights definitely was after the announcement. The next day, Daniel arranged for me to go with some of the special operations units, and we toured some of their facilities, and we got to shoot on their ranges. I'm really into shooting. And so that was definitely a highlight for me on the trip, was meeting those guys, seeing their equipment, seeing their setup, and experiencing some live fire shooting drills on their ranges.
That was the raid, right?
Yeah, there was actually 2 units. We visited the raid, and then there was another group, I'm drawing a blank, but on their name. But so there was one right inside of Paris, right, Notre Dame.
Yeah, the Bear.
And then one right outside of the city that we had to drive to.
The guys actually from the BRI, they have an affiliate in there called CrossFit Topaz, and they saw you at the last games wearing the beanie with the thing. They were really, really happy. And
I really like that logo. Their logo is really cool. Well, because I'm also a big fan of, I'm actually surprised I didn't visit Notre Dame, but I'm a big fan of The Hunchback of Notre Dame and the book. And so I actually read that on the way out. That's right. But so I like their logo a lot.
And you did post that picture on your Instagram with the gargouille, this creature, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Now we all remember it from 17.1. And Notre Dame has burned down, so it's being reconstructed. So you'll have to come back into Paris in a few years to make sure you visit it. Right now, we have quite a special situation in France and in the world as well. We have COVID. Most affiliates in France have been closed for like 7 months, almost 8 months. And it's looking like it will be like at least another month. You have been through a lot of crises in your life in terms of professional crisis, military missions, and a lot of situations where you had to take really hard decisions. Is there one advice you would give to every box owner to keep their heads up and be strong in this situation?
Take it one day at a time, and it's gonna end. It's not gonna. This isn't gonna be the way of life forever. This is temporary, and just take it one day at a time. Find something. Set something. Set a small goal for yourself, and just hit that goal every day. You know, meaning just let's make it through today with a positive attitude and something that anchors us on how successful the day was, and then just repeat that every day. Find small little things to find joy and happiness out of, and just every day repeat that. And I say that because, you know, so when I went through SEAL training here in the United States back in, I think 97, 98, SEAL training was 6 months long, our training. And that's a really long time to be going through the physical and mental abuse that we're going through every day. And what I did to survive it, when I thought about the duration of it, and wow, this is 6 months long, that was kind of overwhelming. So to survive it for me, I broke it up into small victories every day. All I said was, I just need to survive until the next meal. So in the morning, I needed to survive until breakfast. Then once breakfast hit, I just needed to survive until lunch. And so chopping it up into little chunks gave me realistic goals to hit each day. And then before you know it, that in totality was the whole 6 months, and I was able to make it through the training.
Up here, but It's oh no, here you are. Jean-Marie, if you wanna go ahead, and I know you had questions about pressure and Dave and the way he approaches things. Do you wanna move on this?
Yeah, just before talking about all the pressure of the programming stuff, I was listening to a podcast recently. You were in the Power Project podcast with Mark Bell, and you were talking about how you get into the CrossFit, and I was really surprised. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because in France, we know you as the CrossFit Games guy, but we are not so much interested in other stuff because we don't speak English. We don't read a book. So maybe if you got 5 minutes to talk about that time you get into the CrossFit, how you came into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in the military. I found CrossFit while I was in the military doing overseas deployments to Afghanistan. I was looking for a fitness program that was better for what we were doing when we deployed, because we'd have to hike over big mountains and we'd have to go long distances, and then we'd get to a target and then we'd have to go really hard at the target. Well, the type of training I was doing, really just a lot of running and some light weightlifting at the time, wasn't translating well. So I started looking around. I actually talked to a world-class climber. I asked him what he did, and he told me he was doing CrossFit. So then eventually, while I was in the military, I started doing CrossFit on a deployment, and I saw great results, and I realized it was really changing my ability to perform. And for me, that's what CrossFit was about. It wasn't about looking good or lifting more weights, or it was simply about better performance in my job. And I definitely got that from CrossFit, and I fell in love with it. And like, I'm really obsessive about things. So when I go into something, I go in really hard. And that's what I ended up doing with CrossFit at the time. I went all in, started reading all the journal articles, watching all the videos. And because it worked and because I got results from it that translated to my job, I was hooked. Eventually, I was stationed out in Monterey, near where I am now, near the CrossFit Ranch. And I knew CrossFit Santa Cruz was down the road from this location. And one second, sorry. And so I started going to CrossFit Santa Cruz, and I started working out there. And that's where I met Greg Glassman, the founder and creator of CrossFit. And at the time, and he always has been, but he was really accommodating to military folks and anyone who served in, you know, LEO or first responders. He really respects people who serve. And so he was really accommodating to me. He was open arms, and he helped me. He let me train there for free. And then eventually started helping out at seminars. He asked me to help at seminars. And then from there, the role just slowly started to grow. And so I was working seminars and working for Greg in that capacity before the games. And then for the games, eventually he came out to the ranch where we're at now, and we walked around. I just wanted to show it to him. And he said, "Hey, why don't we have an event here?" And I said, "Okay, let's do it." He's like, "Let's have a CrossFit competition." And I said, "All right, cool." And I go, "When do you want to do it?" He goes, "Let's do it in July." I'm like, "All right, I'll organize it." And then that was the first CrossFit Games.
The reason I was talking about that is the fun fact is you were talking the podcast that first you were just looking at CrossFit from side and telling your guy like, "Oh, what is it? That's CrossFit. Oh, are you doing that?" And you tell the guy yes, but you were not doing, and the guy completely dive in that stuff, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I can dive into that. So that part of the story is basically, so I went on this climbing trip with this world-class climber named Mark Twight, and he's actually climbed a lot in France, in Chamonix. And so on that trip, he had some books where he talked about LSD training, long, slow distance training for the mountains. And I thought like the type of missions we were doing in Afghanistan was similar to the type of climbing they did. I was big into climbing, so I kind of related the two. So I thought that type of training would translate well. So I started going really long and doing stuff like that. Well, on this climbing trip I did with Mark, I asked him like about that training, and he said, "I don't do that training anymore." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he says, "I do this thing called CrossFit. It's created by Greg Glassman. It's out of Santa Cruz." And so like, I kind of was like, huh, that's surprising. And I looked at Mark, and if you've ever met Mark or seen pictures of him, he's a really small guy. Like I'm a small guy. I'm a small guy relative to SEALs. I'm a small guy relative to the games athletes, but he was smaller than me. So I was like, well, as small as you are, I don't think CrossFit is going to work for me. But anyway, so then I decided to start researching it and looking at it. And for months, I was watching the videos and studying the program. And finally, on a deployment before the deployment where I started, I had a friend who was really into fitness. He's still into fitness. His name's Dan, and he was on my team. And I said, I was sitting at a computer next to him in Afghanistan, and he was next to me. And he looks over and he goes, oh, what are you looking at? And I said, oh, I'm looking at the CrossFit.com site. And he goes, what's that? I go, well, it's this really cool program with high intensity workouts. And they combine the barbell with body weight, and you do a lot of running. And he looks at it, he goes, oh, that's really cool. He goes, I'm going to try it. He's like, what do you think of it? I'm like, I think it's great. I think you should definitely try it. So then he started doing CrossFit, thinking that I was doing it, but I had never done it. And like every couple of days, every week or so, I'd check in with him. And he was like, this is awesome. I love this. Thanks so much for introducing it to me. I'm getting stronger and faster. And so he was kind of like my test case and my experiment to make sure it was something that had some value to it. And so, yeah, I don't even know, he's probably heard this story at this point, but at the time he had no idea that he was my test case.
That was the first one before a lot of testing guys.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first before I ended up testing a lot of people over the years.
Talking about your position in CrossFit, you're just not involved just in the CrossFit games. So can you talk a bit about that? Because I don't think French people know that story, know that position is not just about the games.
Well, so before, for the last really 15 years, I ran the training department with Nicole Carroll and the CrossFit Games. And really, like, the training department was a majority of the work I did, and some of the most significant work I did, because I ran all the seminars, oversaw the trainers, and that's some pretty powerful work in that, you know, all the affiliates exist because of the level 1 course. So the trainers have to go out there, teach level 1s, and then from a level 1, if someone wants to become an affiliate, they can become an affiliate. So it was a significant part of my life and a significant piece that I'm really proud of. And I really am grateful for the opportunity that I did that. But now with the new leadership and the way it's structured, I'm just more focused on the games and not really the training aspect anymore. I miss the training. I love the training. I wish I was still heavily involved in training, but that's just not how it's structured. And that changed basically once the new leadership came on. So currently I am only just in charge of the sport and the games, which is good. It gives, you know, I'm able to focus all on that. But I do miss the training and all that, because I really, you know, that was powerful work. That was like life-changing, and you saw how it affected people.
I was talking with Julian before. We were talking about the direction CrossFit was taking. To this year is the most inclusive open we're going to experience. We got so many categories, and you were also talking in the last podcast. I was listening about the population you want to involve in the CrossFit methodology, especially people don't have access to a gym. Can you come to that situation? Can you come to that?
Yeah, so this year in the Open, we have, we're really trying to help people engage or play to kind of, I would say, reset or reinvigorate themselves into the CrossFit methodology. I think it's hard for a lot of people to still train, and hard, especially in countries that are on lockdown, and hard for people to find motivation. But the way we've structured the Open with less weeks and with equipment-free options, I think it's really helping give everyone an anchor point to kind of structure themselves and give themselves something a goal to come out of this with, something to give a bright future, to give them an outlook that's very positive. And so that's what like the Gear Free is for. and some of the, we announced the equipment list, and it's much, there's a lot of items that are taken out. So more people who have limited equipment can participate and play. So we really hope to be a motivation and kind of some people might already really be in the community or still engaged even in the lockdowns. Others were probably heavily involved in the community and engaged, but once the lockdowns happened, found themselves falling out because they couldn't really go to the gym. But hopefully with how we're structuring this, it's motivation to jump back into the methodology, to jump back into CrossFit, to jump back into their local affiliate and compete.
And from a programming point, you get now three open workouts to make decision to classify the leaderboard. How hard is that?
3 weeks. We have 3 weeks of open announcements and open 3 weeks. So the open's 3 weeks. How hard is it to program for that? It was challenging, but I think we nailed it. I think we got something that'll be good for the community and select for the right people to advance to the next stage. So I'm excited about trying the 3 weeks. One thing with the games that's been a constant over the number of years is I like trying new things, and I don't like getting stuck in one system and always staying there. And you saw that a lot with the regionals and how we were constantly changing those. You see that with the games. The games every year look very different. Big things look different. Small things look different. There's a lot of changes if you're paying close attention. That's constantly happening at the games. And here with the Open, we had this unique opportunity to try something very different. And because of COVID, it was this idea and notion of reducing the burden on the participant and the affiliates. And how could we reduce the burden? Just reducing the time. So making it a 3-week Open instead of a 5-week Open. And I actually think and believe that the 3-week Open is going to be well received, and our affiliates and our community might demand and give us the feedback that we should carry that on in the future. Now, the 3-week Open paired with the quarterfinals, I believe, is completely a comprehensive test to advance the right people to the semifinals. Could we have gone 3-week Open to semifinals? Yes, and I think for the most part, we would have got it mostly right and getting the right people to the next stage. But by adding that quarterfinal level, you take out all the doubt, meaning like, yeah, it's really clear and it's really comprehensive to get people to the semifinals.
Are you programming as well for all the categories?
No. I program the base, the Open, and then then our team does modifications for gear free, and then the scale, but it's all based off of the core programming. And then for some of for the adapted divisions, we're letting those guys take the lead on. For the semifinals and quarterfinals, our team has put stuff together, and then I sign off on it. I'm sorry, not the semifinals, the quarterfinals. So I'm not programming the quarterfinals like I program the games or like I program the Open. I kind of delegate that and then oversee and approve it.
Okay. Yeah, I was reading your book, and you were talking about the 3 laptops you got just for the programming and this big blackboard. So I'd say at some point, this guy is like the guy in Iron Man, you know, with Jarvis. Got this 3 laptops, but he got a blackboard. And I was just thinking, it seems like there is a narrative side of programming toward Open to the games. And I was wondering, because now you're telling us that you're gonna take some step from quarterfinal or semifinals, because it's two different events. So you're not programming for all the storytelling. How are you gonna go for that?
It's fine. It's part of like trying. it's the departure we've gone to this year. This is one of the things that's very different. Obviously, like you said in the past, we told a complete story from open, the middle section, call it regionals at the time, to games, and we controlled the programming throughout. With this new model, we're controlling the programming at the open, then quarterfinals and semifinals are going to have their own programming, and then go to the games. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. I think it's still, we're going to oversee their programming and sign off and make sure it's a good test of fitness. The games programming won't be too influenced by the semifinal programming, which will probably end up being a very good thing. And it'll be influenced by the open and the quarterfinals for sure. So there'll still be some sort of line between the first part to the games that I keep consistent and keep some themes or ideas carrying over.
Okay. Julian, do you get questions?
Yeah, I was just, you also mentioned, so we have the RX, the scale, the foundations, the equipment-free category. Obviously, France will be a lab for the equipment-free version. So will you be doing the equipment-free version too?
Well, I thought about it. Probably not, but they're not easy either. The equipment-free versions are pretty tough. So
the way we're using it in France at the moment is to, a bit like you said, build that trust again in the affiliates, because that's what we need to do in France. We need to get people out of the couch, literally. We've been in the couch for the last 7 months, so that equipment-free version to be done at home in your Parisian flat or your home in the south of France or whatever is a great opportunity for the box owner to just build some sort of challenge and make sure people will move at home. And we'll probably be doing some sort of CrossFit events just to get everybody on Zoom doing it together, because we don't need a judge and we don't need to submit official scores. And we were just wondering if you were going to be able to join us, at some point.
I'll join you guys for some of your events, for sure. Just send me a note, and I'd love to support you guys.
One of the things that I really like is when you said, when I start something, I'm all in. And that's something that a lot of people, I believe in, and that's a question that Jean-Marie had after, but it's the word legacy. And it's something I know that you're very conscious of because of your background, and you like to know where things started and everything. And in CrossFit, I believe personally, and I've always been a big fan of it, that the foundational articles that Greg wrote a while ago, back in 2001, 2002, 2003 and everything, they're visionary.
Yeah,
they're visionary. And when you read them today, you still, every day that passes, you'll tell yourself that, yeah, okay, he's right more and more. And COVID makes it even more that he's right when he wrote these articles. And when you see the scientific progress, you see that even then he was right about the scientific effects it would have on health.
Yep.
How important is it to you, that notion of legacy and the CrossFit legacy?
Oh, it's tremendously important. And you hit on it too, is like the legacy to a large degree is his in the creation of it, and should never be forgotten or never be, ignored. And it's funny. I was talking to, I did another practice a few months ago, and I said, they were talking about having different people on, and he mentioned like, oh, it would have been cool to have Greg on at some point. And I was like, hey dude, the guy's not dead. Like, he's just not in the radar right now, and he's still around, and like, he's still a significant part of the history of this, and he created it. And so legacy to me is very important. The legacy personally I built in like the games is part of my legacy. For Greg, the methodology is his legacy. And even I feel like for me, a lot of the training and the other pieces I've worked for CrossFit for over 15 years, is all part of what I'll leave behind, or what I'll help, hopefully be remembered for. But the history and those articles and what he created is powerful and significant. And like you said, those articles will survive the test of time. They're still completely relevant and completely informative to people even now who read about them. And he was years ahead of everyone else, and he was right on so much of this stuff, and truly a visionary in creating the program. Well, something I would say too is what's happened. It's interesting because what's happened is back when I started, back in the early days of this whole methodology and program, it was very counterculture, and not a lot of people did these movements, and not a lot of people did cleans or snatches and pull-ups and box jumps and muscle ups, much less combine them and do them at intensity. So the only places you can find to do it was CrossFit gyms, and because it was CrossFit. Over the years, and especially now, the movements, because of CrossFit, are way more common. And what you have is all these little variants. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to forget most of what you're seeing out there that looks like CrossFit started from CrossFit and like it was CrossFit. And so now you have people who can do functional training and do stuff like us and not call it CrossFit and still do okay and still get away with it because we've made this type of training the norm. But it wasn't the norm until we brought it around and until we made it popular. And it really is, you know, a lot of it is CrossFit. And I'm not saying everything that you see that's not branded CrossFit is CrossFit, because that's not the case at all. But there is a distinct style of training that is CrossFit that some people do and claim isn't CrossFit, but really is CrossFit.
Jean-Marie is back. I don't know if you have a question, Jean-Marie.
I had a lot of questions. We were talking about the game, and I was wondering, what did you enjoy the most? Programming for five athletes last year, or for 100 athletes from all the nation the year before?
Okay, so that's a great question. I like it. Two things to that. I actually didn't program for 5, and here's why I say that. That programming that we did was created and set before we reduced it to 5. So that programming was made for everyone. And really, it could have been 5 or it could have been 5. Well, not really 500. It could have been 5 or it could have been 30, and the programming would have stayed the same. Now, why I say not really for 500? Because yeah, when we had the really big group, when we had a couple hundred people there, I had to have things that were more powerful and well-rounded that cut people right away. And like that first test, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed programming that one and testing it with people. Actually, the first version we tested had 225-pound squat snatches instead of 185. 185 was really heavy. 225 would have been really challenging, but appropriate for the top guys. So they were both, I enjoyed both years, but for different reasons. The large programming, it was cool because that's the first time I had to do something like that. And it was a unique challenge. But this year's I really enjoyed because it was all here and it was all, I was able to just live it and be in it and be part of it every day. So this year's was special for that reason.
I don't know for Julian. I was enjoying this year because you're following just 5 athletes, male, woman, male, female, and that was just, yeah, that was just focusing on some athlete, looking at them. You're not waiting for the next heat.
Yeah.
Oh, that was something. And the
program,
I
really liked it that way.
Yeah, even without spectators and stuff, that was
Yeah,
something.
My favorite part of these games, they were great and everything. There was a new test with all even for the athletes, right? You don't have that many people cheering on you and everything. It's very weird for them. It's unusual. But my favorite part is when at the 3-2-1 go on the first workout on the rower, they had no music.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part when you watch it, and you can see on their face it was already painful. You know, that was a good one.
Yeah, when we were talking about it with the team, they're like, "Hey, are we gonna have a DJ? Are we gonna have music?" I said, "Not at the ranch. The ranch is gonna be totally raw, and they're just gonna have to work out with just the sounds of nature and each other."
Yeah. The most funny part was maybe at the end of the first run, when you told Matt that there was another round. I was like, "No way."
Yeah, that was a highlight for sure. I really enjoyed that.
Talking about the cut the year before, were you enjoying the cut, or would you would you appreciate to get more time with the athlete just to test them before cutting them? How was the balance between the two things?
I didn't mind the cuts at all. I like the cuts a lot. I thought it was way too many athletes. It was too inclusive in terms of participation. Like I really like a game, or I really like a cohort of athletes to test off of that's based on abilities and based on like, hey, we worked really hard to get here and it took a lot to get to this stage, and the game should be the best of the best. The fact that we took the country champions, I wasn't then, and I'm still not a fan. And you know what? The atmosphere was cool, and that they came was cool. But what it did to the test, to me, not the test, but the games, it kind of watered it down, because the games is the pinnacle of fitness, and the best in the world should be there. Now, also, it's easy for me to have that position, because think of where I came from in my background. Like I came through a testing program and a special forces program that I was the best in the world, and I had to earn it. So for me, it's really easy to go there like, you know, I want to keep it that way. I want to keep the games for the elite. This year, we're going back to that method, and I'm really happy about that. And it is the right way to do it.
I also heard a story about yourself doing a race with a friend.
Yeah.
You prepare, and then when you heard about the cut and people complaining about that, you were like, no, not with me.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that?
We did this shooting competition, and I trained for it for a year, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars on equipment and on training and on traveling the country preparing for it. And the competition is 2 shooters, you're a partner team, and you go out into the field for 3 days. And for 3 days, you ruck anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day with all your gear. You run, and then you get to a stage and you shoot it. And then you camp out, and so you're in the field for this entire time. You never go back to a hotel. So it's a really tough competition. And I spent all year, 2 years ago, training for it. I put a lot, because I go all in. I put a lot of effort into it. I spent a lot of time on it. And we went to the competition, and I was so excited to be there and so ready to like just get through it and be past that stage, because it took a lot of time and training it took a lot of my energy to prepare for this. And so 2 or 3 hours into day one, my partner on one of the shooting stages drops his pistol. And at a competition like that, if you drop your pistol, you're immediately disqualified. So we were cut within 2 hours from being there. And I traveled all the way across country. It was in Georgia, and I traveled across country to do it. And I was so we had these plans to be there for 3 days and to do all this rucking, and it was over within 2 hours. And I was really, you know, I handled it well. I was like, all right, cool. Like, that's it. I'm going to go home now. And my friend was really, you know, he was heartbroken because he let me down. He felt like he let me down. And I was like, hey, dude, it's not a big deal. That sort of thing happens. And that's the sport. Like, things like that happen. You know what? Like, and here's why it's not a big deal. Because I've been in environments and places where, like, I was getting shot at and other people are getting shot at, and the stakes are much higher. And that's one of the first things I said to my friend when it happened. I said, hey, dude, it doesn't matter. We're not in combat. It's a sport. We're in a controlled environment. And so the same thing with the games. When you come to the games, and if you get cut early or you have something happen, you know what? It's like, it's a sport. It's not a big deal. I don't care. Like, I get it. Your whole life is about it, but still, at the end of the day, put it in perspective to a lot of the other things that people deal with or are going on in the world, and it's easy to bring it down. And so for me, for cuts at the games, like, you know, everyone talks about like, oh, they got to do one workout at the games and then they had to go home and how unfair that was. That happens in a lot of sports. You go to the Olympics and sometimes they get 10 seconds on a heat, and if they're not fast enough in 10 seconds, they're out, you know? And so it's part of competition.
Good point. You're talking about the Olympics, and we heard Eric Rosa talking about the Olympics. What are you thinking when we're talking about CrossFit at the Olympics? What are you feeling now about that?
Who did you say you heard talking about it?
I think we heard Eric was talking about that.
Okay.
Eric Rosa.
What did he say about it? I didn't hear.
I think it was on one of the town hall at some point that it was something that in his mind would maybe happen in the future, but it wasn't a goal or something, but it would be something that could be interesting for CrossFit at some point. We're asking, it's a painful question, but we have the Olympics in 2024 in Paris, and you know, everybody's wondering if one day we will see something happening there.
I mean, I think so. Same sort of position as you just said, he stated. I think it's like, it would be cool if it could happen. I don't think we're in this space of like, if the games don't make it to the Olympics, they're a failure, or that's not our goal, but, or CrossFit, I should say, if CrossFit doesn't make it in the Olympics. I think it can happen. I think it should be explored. And I think it's definitely years off because that stuff takes a lot of time to develop and is slow moving. But yeah, and I don't think the games, like I wouldn't, if the Olympics, if CrossFit was to be in the Olympics, I don't think it should be the games, it should be another event. That's my take of it. Like the games are the games, and then maybe at the Olympics we have, I don't want to call it like a decathlon, but something like that. Or, you know, maybe there's some fixed workouts, but so I'm not against it, but I'm also not like actively going out of my way to force it or try to push it to happen. It'll happen naturally, and it'll happen when it's time.
You were chatting about the off season in a few of your chats with the other podcasts. What is so we have the main season from the Open to the Games, and that's like the main structure, and it has to be understood very easily by athletes and everything. But then you have this off season that CrossFit has been talking a lot about it. What vision do you have about it?
Oh, I think just for people who are interested in competing should have the opportunity to compete year round, and people at all levels. So elite athletes, athletes like myself, age group athletes, not elite athletes, beginner athletes. I think everyone should have the ability to compete in mass competitions, online and in person, throughout the year. And there should be different style events. There should be team events. There should be super team events. There should be, again, beginner events. And that's my idea for the off season, is just like as much as anyone wants. And if you don't want to compete in any of it, it's also okay. But I do think there's a desire for people to compete.
Yeah, I was preparing a few days before the level 3, and I was just reading at the articles, and then it came to my mind that maybe you were just hoping that the athletes were reading the articles sometimes, because I remember the first time you reintroduced the dumbbell in the workout, and looking at the online qualification this year, we got the 2K row. And I was reading this article about how to complete the 2K row in less than 7 minutes, and also the fitness in 100 words. We're talking about the gymnastic, master the basics and the holds, and then we got this handstand hold in that square. So I was wondering, are you doing that by purpose?
So the history in the past and a lot of those articles are very formative of my ideas and my perspective towards programming and the methodology. Those in particular weren't on purpose, but again, so much of that influences me, and so much, I spent a lot of time with Greg over the years, and just the core aspect of CrossFit and the core style of programming is something I really default to and am a fan of. Sometimes I think people get carried away with trying to make programming too much or too big. And I didn't think like you're saying about those things, but they're always in the back of my mind. So they definitely influenced me to a degree, but not as directly.
Okay.
I have a question on this. If you had to choose, this is a hard question, between functional movements, variance, and intensity, which one would you pick? Which one for you has the most benefits and would be what you need to include in your GPP?
Did you say volume as one of them?
No, variance, functional movements, and intensity.
Functional movements. So it all starts with functional movements. And then the variance, and when you're ready, the intensity. Now that's me saying the prescription for people. So the movements are the most important part, the functional movements. Learn how to do those, learn how to do them well, and then over time add intensity. Even for me personally, I think I'm at a point now where, and I've been this way for years, I'm backing off on the amount of, like, I'm not always going 100%. Oftentimes I'm going 80 or 90%, but still using the same movements, but just backing off on intensity a little. But I still need the intensity and I still use intensity. And sometimes I still go as hard as I can because that's truly where the results are. But yeah, the functional movements.
If we're talking about the affiliate cup, is that a way of involving the affiliate again in the competition instead of super team?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, so bringing the affiliates back into the competition was a big priority for me and something that means a lot because they've always been part of the competition. And so the affiliate cup engages a base that's much more important to myself and to CrossFit, I believe, is the affiliates. And so giving them a way to compete and rally behind their best athletes, their coaches, their owner, and represent themselves and represent their area at the games is important to me. And so, yeah, the affiliate cup, I was upset that it went away and I'm happy that it's back. And I also, the super teams is cool, but it's not, it doesn't, I don't think it resonates across the community like the affiliate or like the affiliate cup does, like affiliate teams do.
Julian?
I have one. I don't want to bother you too much. We've been 40 minutes into it, and one of my last questions is for the French community. You will be. We heard that the open announcements are coming back, and that they will be happening in your home, or somewhere close to your home. When will they happen internationally again? It was a highlight for Italy, France, and now that you've given it to us, we want more. So when will you be back?
If next year's open up, we'll travel next year. We'll bring it back next year's. But we'll just see what's happening, a year from now. I hope everything will be more back to normal, but we'll see. But yeah, definitely. Once things get back to normal, we'll travel them again.
Cool. Jim?
Yeah. Question about the games. Looking at your mission on the games, what is the best feeling? When you crush them with the events because you find a hole in their fitness, or when they crush the event and you are not expecting that? What kind of relation you get with the athletes at that moment when you're programming and you say, okay, he crushed it or maybe not?
I think so. Usually when these events happen at the games, in preparation, like we've rehearsed and we've gone over them and we've had athletes test them so much that I'm typically not too surprised with what happens at the games. Like I know what's coming, and on some of them, I am expecting them to do really good and go fast. And sometimes they go faster than I expect, and like I'm impressed or surprised by that. And on the ones where it's like it's really going to crush them or be hard, I kind of know that going in. Like that's the intent of it. So it's and I don't I don't get joy out of it other than the joy of like it being a good test and it being appropriate for them. So I'm happy either direction. I'm happy if they crush it, and I'm happy if it crushes them.
Okay, thanks.
Ouais, c'est bon.
Parfait.
Dave, thank you very much. We'll make sure to rally as many people in France as possible for these open. The community is very willing to do it. They're just very frustrated. They can't do it as they usually do, but they thank you for the opportunity to have at least the equipment-free version and to be able to create some sort of thing happening for the boxes, and the box owners are realizing it's a very good opportunity for them to make sure these clients stay a part of the community. And I thank you on their behalf for this. I also, yeah, thank you very much. And also for the foundations category, which is a very important one. It's this year we might not be able to appreciate it as much as we want to, but it's great. I mean, for people to be able to invite their +1, their family member, their brother, their sisters, somebody older in their family, and to make them able to compete in the open and maybe get a new member in their box is a great opportunity. Was that your mind behind the new categories?
Yeah, the foundations was really about including more people, and the scaled was good, but even at scaled, there were some people below that who had trouble with those weights. So we wanted to increase the ability for more people to do it.
And I saw now that on the foundations, even though you're not exactly at the level that is prescribed, you can go a bit lower and it's fine, right?
Yeah, and so that's the intent with the foundations. I've said to some people, scale additionally as needed. So basically we put out the numbers, but if you as the coach thinks that's even too much for your client, well then scale more, it's okay. And it's just at that point, like it's the community, it's participation. It's like there was a point where some people couldn't do the open because of the weights of scaled. We don't want that to be the case. You don't want to be at an affiliate watching everyone else do it, or even watching via Zoom your community do it, and you can't because the scaled weights are too much. So that's where we added foundations.
Oh, this is great. And I think that this was the games and the sport, and on top of this, the on-ramp program that was launched a few days ago. This is, if you put these two together, and if we make the magic work, and if COVID gets away and everything, this will create a magic formula for box owners that will be very grateful to what CrossFit is doing right now.
I think so too.
So I want on my behalf and on behalf of the community and GM to really thank you for everything you've done for the community past years. The games have been a pillar, cornerstone to what CrossFit is today and to the success of France. We're at 646 affiliates today, and it's been one of the only country growing, I heard, in the past. And your work is not a stranger to it. So thank you.
Thank you guys, and thanks for being part of the community and having me on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Jem, tu peux couper?
Yes.